So, Olivia, you've made a transition from being a cancer patient to cancer advocate, and a really effective cancer advocate. Just tell us how you went about making that transition in your life.
Well, it started in 1992 when I was first diagnosed with breast cancer, and I thought I was going to keep it secret and didn't really want anyone to know at that time, but because of my celebrity, I unfortunately got into the papers, and I thought it was going to spread like wildfire and scare my family, so I decided to talk about it openly, therefore I wouldn't shock anyone and it would be easier to deal with. And so that really started the journey, and that was in 92, and I had surgery and chemotherapy, and then I was fine for many, many years. But because of that, my cancer journey that I thought was over at the time, I did get involved with some cancer things and raising money for cancer research and so on. But it wasn't until about 15 years ago that I was approached by the Austin to lend my name to a cancer centre. And that seemed like a wonderful thing to do, except I felt very strange about putting my name on a building. So I asked my mother, and she said in her very German accent, "Yes, well, darling, if you're going to help people, you should do this." So that was all I needed, really. You know, your mother's words always resonate stronger than anybody else's. So I agreed to lend my name at the Austin for a new cancer centre if they would include the word wellness in and we would have a wellness centre, because for me, the mind-body-spirit connection going through any kind of illness, but particularly cancer, for me is very powerful. And I knew that we had to support the patients, not just their bodies, but their mind, their spirit, their psychology, their social activities. Everything needs to be supported. So that, I'm very happy to say, happened, and now we have a wonderful research institute and a wellness centre, and everyone interacts and works together, and it's been a wonderful, wonderful experience.
And Olivia, it's such a great achievement. I have a sort of, I fill up with wellness, with comfort just when I walk into the building. It's such a brilliant design. The physical environment of a cancer centre, how important do you think that is for patients undergoing treatment for cancer?
Extremely important. In fact, that's how I got involved in this. I went out to see the Austin Cancer Centre that was there at the time. This is 15 years ago. Excuse me. And it was so dismal and dark, and the paint was cracking on the walls, and the patients are lined up in the corridor on chairs. And I thought, if you're going through cancer, you need a place that's at least comforting and there's light and a comfortable place to be. And so that really inspired me to get involved also, because I thought they need a new space. And so Daryl Jackson did the most beautiful design, and I worked with him, and light was one of the most important things for me, because having been in hospital a few times, that was always wonderful to look out at nature. That's a very healing thing.
And what the other thing that I reflect on when I think about the physical cancer centre in your name is that in many ways it's leading by example, that not every cancer patient in Victoria can be treated there, but it sets an environment, an attitude that others can follow from. Is that part of your vision for the centre?
I would love, and I think that it was a bit of a battle to have a wellness centre in a public hospital in the beginning, and people weren't sure it was a good idea, but it really has been so wonderful for the patients, because not only can they go down to the wellness centre by themselves, but with their families, and they get supported there, and we have group therapies and music therapies and medical oncology and medical massage and just every kind of support you can imagine a patient needs. And I got to experience this myself last year when I had a reoccurrence. I've had a third bout of breast cancer, and I ended up in the hospital with my name on it, which was quite an amazing achievement. I must have planned it somehow. This was last year at this time. So a year ago, almost to the day, I was in my own hospital with a metastases to my sacrum, which caused a fracture. So you can imagine it was not the most comfortable experience, but it was, because the care at the ONJ is so amazing, the staff. And I got to be undercover boss, because I didn't really want anyone to know I was there. I didn't want to draw attention. I didn't want press bothering anybody in the building. So I walked around in a beanie and a surgical mask. When I say walk, I hobbled on a frame because I was learning to walk. And the care there was so spectacular, and the wellness programs that would come to my room, which is something that I'd always dreamt of, that the patients in every room could have music therapy, could have art therapy, could have support. So I got to experience that and realize how incredibly important it is psychologically when you're going through a cancer diagnosis and treatment to have this outside support and creativity and things that inspire you to get well.
It's just fantastic. The other special thing about cancer centres is the ability of bringing researchers and clinicians and patients together to work together. So how important do you think that is to build those partnerships?
I think it's wonderful. In fact, when I walked in here and I saw all the names under the VCC, the word that came to me, which is really the word of this decade, I think, is share. How we're sharing information, sharing ideas, sharing ways of making it a kinder way to treat patients, which is my dream, is that not only do we win over cancer, but the treatments on the way to getting well are kinder. And so I think the fact that you're all together and you're going to collaborate, and the fact that everyone's under one roof there, is a wonderful thing.
Yeah, it's interesting you talk about the word sharing, because in my career I've seen, a transformation of people sharing their knowledge before it gets to publication. The academics are always worried about their publications. That's how we get assessed. That's how we get grants to keep our research programs going. But there's really been this transformation in sharing information before publication, which to me I think can fast track the access to new knowledge for clinicians and patients that are facing challenges. So how do you go about, do you think, encouraging that sharing? What can you do as a cancer advocate with that sharing?
Well, I think just this is a prime example of a beginning of it, and I think that we have to realise that the ultimate goal that we all have is to heal people from cancer, to win over cancer, to prevent cancer too. We need to talk about preventative measures as well. And so I think it's a wonderful beginning. I talk about it whenever I can, and I think that I've seen more and more of this. I think it's a world change that we all need to share, because we're all under one roof, literally on this planet. And there's so many people affected around the world that need help. We're very lucky in Australia that we have access to socialised medicine and that we have these opportunities, but there are many people in foreign countries and underdeveloped countries that need this knowledge and need this help.
And we're having a debate tomorrow about the world leading cancer outcomes in Victoria, and it's pretty timely, actually, just published last week, were the latest survival rates for cancer, and Australia's and Victoria are leading the world. But we need to do more, right? Because there's many Victorians. We heard from Anthony that that are challenged with cancer. Uncle Ian Hunter told us about 2 family members that passed on from cancer, so still a long way to go. But the rest of the world, do you think Australia can have impact in leading for the rest of the world?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
We impacted everything, haven't we? I mean, most of the top actors in the world and musicians, a lot of them from Australia, it never used to happen, but now Australia's very well loved and very well respected, and I think that people will pay attention to what we're doing down here.
Terrific. So I'd just like to change the conversation a little bit now and talk about the involvement of patients in research, something that is very close to our heart at the VCCC. So we're starting to see patients getting involved in priority setting for research, in design of research studies. So how important do you think that is, and where might it go?
I think it's wonderful that, it used to be in the old days that you would go to the doctor and he'd put you on something, as they said, and give you a prescription, and you wouldn't question it, and you would just do what was you were told. I think.
And you said the doctor was a he as well, right? So that's changed. Yeah.
That's true.
Yeah.
That is very true. And I think now patients they are more they have more knowledge. There's so much access to knowledge with the internet and things that they know more, so they want to know more and they want to be informed of what's going on. And I think as patients are giving their blood and their tissue and their cultures to the doctors are probably listening to the patients more about what they see as important. And again, I go back to the kind of therapies. So I think that's what is important. And we are getting there. Immunology is a wonderful beginning for that, and I think there's many more ways to go.
Yeah, it's quite remarkable, the transformation that the immunotherapy has had to cancer, and you must be very proud of the work at your Cancer Research Institute in immunology.
I am, absolutely, and Dr. Sabana, who leads them all, is a wonderful, wonderful man and leader, and I'm very excited because my dream has always been on the hospital it says Olivia Newton-John Cancer Wellness Research Centre, and I want to take off the word cancer one day. So it'll just be about wellness and research, and that's my dream. That's my dream. It's going to happen.
Well, I think that's a vision that everyone in this room would be right behind you. That's just fantastic. So we've touched a little bit about the Alliance, the Victorian Comprehensive Cancer Centre, as an alliance. The Wellness and Research Centre and the Cancer Research Institute under your name as a part of that alliance. What potential does an alliance have beyond what individual institutions can do themselves? What do you think?
Yeah, I think again it goes back to the sharing aspect and the pooling of ideas and the pooling of resources, if that's possible. And I think the more sharing we have of that was the wonderful thing about the ONJ. That was the whole decision, to have everything under one roof. So the research and the patients and the treatments is all under one roof, so the researchers can interact with the patients and with the doctors who are treating them. And this is like an expanded version of what we have. We have a mini version of the cancer, of what you're doing. So I think it's just a wonderful opportunity for people to learn from each other.
And very much a way of the future. We're hoping other jurisdictions around the world will follow this model. So we touched on cancer immunology, but what do you think the biggest wins we've had in cancer research in recent years? Is it immunology? Are there other things, do you think, where there's been real wins that have made a difference to patients?
Well, I'm sure there are. I'm not a researcher, so I don't know all the intricacies of the different treatments, but I know immunology has been a wonderful step forward, and I know they're doing a lot of research on other things. And of course, my dream is to do more research into plant medicine and into cannabis, which has been a great healer for me. Along with my other treatments, the cannabis really helped me. I was able to wean myself off the morphine with cannabis, which is a safe way to do it because you don't die from cannabis. And so that I'd like to do more research. They're doing a lot in Israel, and it's helping a lot of illnesses, not just cancer, but I have a lot of belief in that.
And, you know, that raises the whole importance of cancer survivorship. You know, this latest information that just published last week, with 70% of Victorians now being alive at 5 years after a cancer diagnosis. When I started my medical career, doesn't seem like that long ago, but it was only 50%, so we're making big gains. But do we need to do more?
I'm going for 100.
Yeah, 100, absolutely, absolutely. So are we doing enough in that survivorship research to enable those people that are now alive to live better, or should we do more, do you think?
Well, I know we're about to, I'm very thrilled that we are, along with the VCC, doing a study with our patients with cannabis for sleep, for pain, for just general ease. And I believe that's a beginning, a wonderful beginning, and I think it's going to help a lot of people. And the proof is in the pudding, and I'm the pudding, so that's all I can say.
Yeah. Well, great to have you as the pudding, Olivia. Okay, so thinking now about the future, and that's what this conference is all about, you know, planning for the future. The biggest challenges, and of course every challenge comes with opportunities. What do you think the biggest challenges and opportunities are for us in cancer research and cancer care?
Well, I think the biggest opportunities are collaboration and sharing, obviously. The biggest problem is always funding. for everybody. I mean, that's always a struggle, and we're always trying to raise funding, and I know you all must be fit to doing your special projects. And I think sharing the information, getting it out, and getting the positive results out so that the public know about it would be really important, because I think they'd be more willing to give if they realised what was happening in a positive way. So I think that's one way that we need to expand our reach.
Yeah, that's a really interesting point. I know when I entered the academic cancer research space as a young bloke, there was almost a discouragement from publicising to the general public your research. I mean, is that crazy? It was
well,
like that?
I guess it was, as you were talking about before, everyone wants to have their own slot, which I understand. I mean, it's a normal human thing, but I think that we were almost at an epidemic with cancer, so we really need to rethink that we need to just share, and it's okay. It's okay to share, and it'll be a wonderful thing, and the whole idea is to win over cancer. That's our goal.
And it has been quite an interesting transition, I think, in that nowadays, you know, I see colleagues congratulating each other when they have their research discussed in the media. It's such a change, and I think you've highlighted the need for us to do more about that.
Yeah, seems good. Humanise it, make it accessible so people understand that there are good things coming down the pipeline that could help them in the future, and we all need to think that I don't think anybody in Australia hasn't been touched by cancer in some way, some member of their family or someone that they know, or, you know, it's just, sadly, that is the case. So we really need to, you know, keep doing this.
Fantastic. So, look, I'd just like to ask one more question, somewhat personal, actually, for both of us, because, you know, both you and I are cancer survivors, and and just like yourself, I also, you know, went very public following my diagnosis. So, for you, how important do you think it is to have someone who's well known to, in your case, to the world, in my case, just a narrow group of people, but someone as well known to the world as yourself, putting your hand up and say, I'm a cancer survivor? How important do you think that is for the community's approach to tackling cancer?
I like to say thriver and not survivor, because I feel like I'm a thriver, and third time, so I'm extremely grateful. I think it, again, draws attention to the fact that no one remains untouched by cancer, whether you're a celebrity or not a celebrity. There's no rules and no laws, and why not me? You know, it happened to me, and I think for a reason. Because if it hadn't happened, I wouldn't have been involved in the building of the ONJ. I wouldn't be here today. I wouldn't be, hopefully, encouraging people who are going through it that there is, you know, you can get through it. And that's what I see as my role.
Fantastic. Well, I think that's an absolutely brilliant note to finish on. Olivia, thank you so much for sharing.
Thank you.
Thank you for your leadership and advocacy for cancer. You're making such a huge difference, and we're very proud as Australians, as Victorians, and as members of the world community to have your leadership. So thank you so much for your time today.
Thank you so much. I just want to say that I'm not an advocate for cancer, I'm an advocate for the end of cancer.
Yes.
Thank you.